Alright, ladies and gentlemen, version 4.0 has of course just recently released, which does mean first of all we got a few new characters, we also got a few new Nova Flare buffs, and we also haven't made the Tierlist since 3.7, and we also had Dahlia introduced, which absolutely revived the Breakout archetype. So I think there's been a bit of a shift when it comes to what are the most meta supports, the people's perceptions around various supports. So of course today we're going to go ahead and update our free-to-play tier list. What do I mean by free-to-play? First of all, we are only considering E0S0 for limited units. For standard units we can consider some early cons, but it won't really change their standing all that much, to be honest, or unless you can get the constellations for free, in which case we could possibly consider it as well. Also, this isn't more of a pull guide or a strength comparison. I'd call this a bit more of an investment priority. First of all, you know, which one of these characters should you pull and then also invest into? I would say it's a pull priority, but then some of these characters you get for free, so that doesn't really work. So I rather call it an investment priority rather than just their pure strength level, although strength level will play probably the biggest part in this. But anyway, that being said, I think it is time to hop onto the list, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just start off with our bottom 7, because they haven't really changed since last time. Actually, I think last time it was 6 of the bottom were the same, but I want to make another addition. That bottom 6 is now going to be Welt in the F tier, because unfortunately his kit just kind of doesn't really make sense in Star Rail. I hope he gets either an entire rework or that they just give him a second form. What would be cool is if they reworked him and then gave him a second form which synergizes with him, although maybe it's not fun having two of the same unit in the same team. I don't know. Next up, Bio, kind of just an outdated healer, doesn't really do much for your team other than heal, and there are characters who have much better healing. Japad, similar, but just the case with shielders. Also, Dunkhan PT is free, so there's absolutely no reason to use Japad when Dipped is free. Next up, we also have Topaz, who I just consider to not be particularly strong, even in her follow-up niche. I thought she was, I wouldn't really recommend her for free-to-plays, especially when March 7th and Mose exist, or March 7th Hunt and Mose exist. So yeah, she's also gonna go ahead and go in the D tier. Then next up we have two of our early version 1 sustainers, those being Luocha as well as Fuxuan. Luocha actually has some pretty solid healing even to this day, but he just doesn't provide much utility to your team other than skill point generation, not speed point generation. Fuxuan actually has a bit more benefits to your team, especially if you pick up her E1 from losing your 50/50s. You can also get Luocha's E1, of course, from the shop. Neither of their E1s I'd say are particularly game-changing. I'd say Fuxuan's is probably better, but then as a sustain, she also, I'd say, struggles a bit more to keep up with the current day, so she's also going to go ahead and stay in the C tier. And then our final addition in the C tier will be our only version 2 character here in the bottom 7, and this pains me so much because I love him so much. Last time I was able to scrape him into the B tier, but after some of the changes we've had, I think he unfortunately doesn't really stand up to some of the characters now in the B tier, so unfortunately Jiaoqiu is gonna have to go ahead and go in the C tier. I hate doing this so much. I hope they buff him. Please just give him a healer, so that please just give him a heal, so you know he can keep his current kit and be a healer. Yeah, that would be honestly amazing. So please Toyo, just give him healing in his kit for his Nova Flare, please. But yeah, that's gonna be our bottom 7. With that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the B tier, and our first character in the B tier is gonna go ahead and be Bronya. Bronya still definitely has some uses. You could obviously get quite a few of her items for free because she is a standard character. We've had a standard selector you know, more than once. Did we? Yes, we did. No, actually no, we've only had one. No, we've only had it once, I believe. Instead they've been giving out the tokens for the gift shop, because our standard selector this time actually had limited characters and standard characters, so no, I stand corrected. We had one opportunity to get her for free, but then you can also get it from the store. You can also lose your 50/50 store. You can also get it from standard banner. So, you know, I'd say like an E1 Bronya is solid. E0 Bronya probably C tier, but E1, E2 Bronya, fair. B tier would be fair enough, especially because E2 Bronya has quite a few uses with Final actually isn't that bad. So yeah, I'd go ahead and give her the B tier. Silverwolf last time I had in the C tier, but now that I think about it, Silverwolf is actually just a better unit than Jiaoqiu. Comments also did point that out last time, so I'm gonna go ahead and put Silverwolf in the B tier as well. She has quite a few, I was gonna say quite a few buffs, rather she has quite a few debuffs. She's definitely stronger than she used to be post Nova Flare. I just feel like she doesn't really have a best in slot team. You know, she's solid for Archer, but she's not a definitive best in slot. She kind of shares it with Tribi as well as Cypher. She's just solid for quite a few units, especially in single target. She's very strong in single target, although we don't have as much very single target content. You know, even a boss like Lygus who has a massive single target HP bar, you want to clear out his summons quicker to make your life easier, so even then that doesn't really work as a single target fight. So because there isn't that much true single target, I feel like part of her potential is wasted, and then also the fact that she doesn't have a clear-cut best in-slot team. But recently we did just have the new Silverwolf form announced, so you know, maybe she'll synergize very great with Silverwolf. We'll have to wait and see. But next up we have Kafka, and I don't have Heistlands or Black Swan here, because I mean it's weird because I feel like Black Swan is a more supportive character than Heistlands, but then I also feel like Heistlands is more of a traditional DPS in the dot sense, whereas it feels like, although at the same time Black Swan is the team's main damage contributor. So honestly, I'm just gonna have Kafka here represent. I mean, Kafka is undeniably more of a support in that team, and she is all. And I'll also have her just represent the entirety of Dot. Dot is SS tier right now, I believe. Before Black Swan's buffs, I had it in the S tier. I had the Dot go from SS to S. Well, this was when Heistlands released. Then for a bit, I'd say it dropped down a bit, and then I think it's definitely back up with Black Swan's buffs right now. Dot is just very powerful right now. So yeah, Kafka is undeniably in the SS tier for me personally. Next up we have Ho-Ho, who I am gonna go ahead and put in the B tier. I'd say sustain-wise, honestly, Locha is more comfortable than Ho-Ho, but she just provides quite a few utilities. She's also very useful for the current Elation teams in the game, I would say. But at the same time, she was also pretty good for Aglaya. She's solid for the Dot team as well. But I'd say she just kind of has quite a few quality of life issues. Skill point generation, also her healing. So I'd say she definitely has a few drawbacks if she gets a Nova Flare or two. Honestly, they don't even need to improve like her buffs or stuff. They just need to give her a bit more quality of life. And then I think that would make her at least an A tier unit, if not possibly even S tier, especially if they buff some of her buffing capabilities as well. Then I'd definitely say she's an S, could even go up to an SS the character, I'm not sure, but for the time being she is in the B tier unless she gets a few reworks. Ruan Mei, gonna go ahead and put in the B tier. I was on the verge of putting her in the A tier, but now that I think about it, I'd say these B tier characters, for me A and above are kind of characters who have their set best in slot team, and Ruan Mei kinda lost her best in slot team with the introduction of Dahlia. Of course, you could run her with Dahlia and then get rid of Fugue, or you could run her in a type of sustainless team. That would also work, but I'd say overall, generally speaking, Ruan Mei is more of a B tier character. You know, for example, she's mostly for those non-attack scalers like Castris and stuff, or Evernight, if you don't have some of their best in slot supports. But then they have so many supports that if you don't have at least two of them, that your priorities are probably a bit wrong. So I'd say Ruan Mei is probably in the B tier. Next up we have Sparkle, who was previously, I believe, in the B tier, and now it's going to shoot all the way up to the SS tier. First of all, you can get her for free, so absolutely build her. Then they also buffed her, so she's insane buffs wise, and then she also has two very clear best in slot teams, those being the Archer team as well as the Sparksy team, which are both very strong. So yeah, I'd say Sparkle right now is an SS tier character. There is literally no reason whatsoever not to use her. She's useful for Final, useful for Mighty, useful for just so many different units. I had Sunday previously as my #1 support in the game, and I'd say just because of how they buffed Sparkle, I'm not sure he's even in the top tier anymore, let alone #1. So yeah, you know, a lot of those older units, Blade, Jingliu, stuff like that, just the newer ones, like I mentioned, Archer, Sparksy, two of the best teams in the game. You know, it doesn't really work as well for like Evernight, stuff like that, but then for some of the other top units, like I said, like a Mighty, like a Final, she also works. So yeah, definitely SS tier character for me. Aventrine, I'm gonna go ahead and also slot in the B tier. To me, Aventrine, I'd also say he's better sustain wise than Ho-Ho, although he definitely does have his issues. Damage wise, you know, his damage, people used to say he does decent damage. No, he doesn't, to be honest. His damage I'd call pretty negligible, at least in my personal opinion. But then he also doesn't, since he focused a bit more on damage than buffs, you know, he didn't age quite as well as he could have if he had more buffing capabilities. But I'd still put him in the B tier. I'd still say he's a better unit than Fu Xuan for the time being, unless they improve Fu Xuan's sustain capabilities. But for the time being, like I said, he is in the B tier. Robin, I'd also put in the B tier. I was thinking of putting Ruan Mei A and then Robin B, because I feel like at least the Ruan Mei can benefit the non-attack scalers, because there's so many units that buff attack that I feel like Robin kind of loses out in basically every single team other than the Fei Xiao team, but the Fei Xiao team isn't even meta right now. So I'd say Robin kind of doesn't really have a niche. Also, you can get Ruan Mei's E1 for free, which right now for Robin you can't do, but you know, I'd say I'd still put her in the B tier minimum. I definitely don't think she's as low down as a Jiaotu. The problem is, like, early on I would have had her in the A tier. You know, you could put her alongside the likes of a Nexa, Finon, stuff like that if you don't have some of their best in slot supports. But now that they all have a lot of options, Cyrene, Saridra, Sunday, Sparkle, there's just so many options that I think Robin kinda nowadays she's just kind of redundant outside of her Face Shout team, but who knows if she'll even stay best in slot in that team. So I'd say beat her for the time being. Linkshaw I previously had, I believe, in the B tier, but I'm actually going to go ahead and put Linkshaw up into the A tier. First of all, Dot is just stronger, so Linkshaw will be stronger. The triple Dot support alongside Linkshaw as the main carry slash DPS also works pretty damn well, especially in AoE where everyone is weak to fire as well. So yeah, she definitely has quite a few uses, you know. Also, just as a general sustain, she's pretty solid. I'd put her above Huohuo both in sustaining capabilities. And then also I'd say, you know, in a team like the Herta, where you could use Huohuo, but then, like I said, her quality of life is just bring her down. But then someone like Linkshaw works pretty well because of the AoE stuff. So yeah, Linkshaw is just a solid unit, not the best, but still pretty solid, and I think her value went up with the increase to Dot value. Sunday, I'm gonna go ahead and put in the S tier. I think people are doom posting Sunday way too hard. They're saying that, you know, he's like unusable, stuff like that. Bro fell off, he doesn't belong in the Apex tiers. I'd still say, although maybe not exactly in the SS tier, you know, if I wasn't including sustainers in this list, maybe Sunday would swap a slot into the SS tier. But because I am including sustainers, then I'd probably put him in the S tier max. Just because we don't want to overcrowd the top tier. But, you know, his buffs are still very solid. Dunhung PT's existence also makes him even better in the fact that he's obtainable for free, makes it so he's not reliable on another Gotchian to get his full buff. So, you know, for someone like Anexa, he's very strong. For someone like Finon, he's very strong. Still good for Mighty, although I believe the Saridra Siren team is what people are gravitating towards most nowadays. So yeah, Walt Sparkle did replace him in some of his teams, and he isn't looking quite as strong as her right now. I'd still say he's a very, very strong unit, a very strong support, and I still would say if he's strong for the DPSs you enjoy / want to invest in most, I'd still say he's a solid pull. So I'd go ahead and still keep Sunday in the S tier. I'd say top of S tier as well. When it comes to that. Next up we have Fugue, who I'm gonna put her in the A tier alongside Linkshaw. Although Dot is strong right now, I don't feel like it's not Dot. Sorry, although Break is definitely strong right now, I also wouldn't call it the strongest archetype in the game. I'd value Dot more than I would value Break. So for that reason, I'm gonna go ahead and put Fugue in the A tier, because Dahlia, I'm just gonna go ahead and put Dahlia straight away. I'm gonna put her in the S tier as well. Like I said, since I don't value Break at the same level as Dot, I wouldn't put her in the same tier as Kafka, and then obviously Fugue and Dahlia don't belong in the same tier, so Dahlia gets S tier and Fugue gets A tier. But you know, definitely props to her for basically reviving. Yeah, I'd say a dead archetype. I'd say that Break was pretty dead at E0S0 outside of some niche cases. So yeah, Dahlia definitely did revive Break. So she can go ahead and go in the S, but I wouldn't quite call her SS, especially for free-to-plays where I'm not sure if I'd recommend investing into Dot. For example, from the selector you could get Kafka or perhaps her E1 if you wanted to for free. And then you know, so I'd say that Gafka is in the SS tier. She is more accessible than Break teams, whereas Break teams, you know, you'd have to pull for the Break DPS. You don't really need to pull for Linkshaw. You could just use Gallagher, but then if you don't pull for Linkshaw, then pull for Linkshaw as well. Then you have to pull for Fugue, then you have to pull for Dahlia. So I'd say I'd probably say it's a bit more expensive than the Dot team, and I'd also say it's slightly worse. So yeah, Dahlia will be going in the S tier for me. RMC, free unit, absolutely insane unit, very strong teams, Caster's team, Evernight team. And then, obviously, you can just use them as a generic support as well. But I'd say Castrus Evernight is where they shine the most. And I'd say Castrus Evernight are still probably SS or DPSs in the game, at least for the time being, before more Elation DPSs come out, like, for example, Evanesia as well as Silver, who we both saw drip marketed. But I'd say for the time being, still SS tier. And then next up, we have Tribi, who is our best general support in the game still. Although she doesn't have as many best in slot teams, you know, she's still good in Castrus, she's still good in Evernight, she's still good in Archer teams. She's still good in Sparksy teams, at least for the time being. Well, you know, good in Sparksy teams if you don't have Yao Guang. But yeah, she's a very strong general support. but I definitely feel like she is gonna fall out of the SS tier unless we get her E1 for free, which I doubt they'll do. So I'd say for the time being, until Elation really takes over the meta, I'd keep her in the SS tier, but then once Elation takes over, then it's very possible that she'll go down in the S tier, kind of similar to Sunday, where they were both pretty generic supports, but then very good at what they do. I feel like Sunday was superseded more by Sparkle than Tribby by any of the more niche supports, so I'd still go ahead and keep her in the SS tier, at least for the time being. And then Hyacinth, I'm going to go ahead and call the best sustain in the game. Obviously, she is absolutely insane in Remembrance teams, whether it be the Castress team, whether it be the Avonite team, whether it be the just the full flagship team, or she's also pretty solid for Mighty as well. Especially in the Surudra Siren team, to my knowledge. And then she's just very comfortable. For example, in Dot, your team is basically unkillable when you factor in Hycelin's enemy attack nerf, as well as Hyacinth's HP increase. It's insane. She isn't the most skill point friendly, but she's just such a good sustain that honestly I don't find myself needing to use skill points that often on her. So I'd also go ahead and say she's SS tier. I'd call her the best sustain in the game right now. Although, I could see the argument for S if you're saying, if you don't want to invest in the HP teams, then she isn't as valuable, and someone like Dunhung is more valuable for you to invest into. I'd get that. Although I'd still probably just about put her in the SS tier, although maybe that is because I am someone who has pulled for Remembrance. Maybe if you're a brand new player, you don't need to pull Hyacinth as much as all the players, just enjoy your Dunhung. Cypher I'm going to go ahead and put in the A tier. She's kind of similar to Silverwolf in that she has a lot of teams where she's very solid in, and sometimes you'll wish you had her, but at the same time, you're never truly kicking yourself that you don't have her, because she isn't the singular best in slot in most teams. Although she's very strong, she isn't best in slot, like I said. For example, for Finon, for Casterus, for Archer, she's a very good option, but she's not the clear-cut number one. Same for Sparksy without Yao Guang. So, she's a very solid DPS, but just because of her lack of best in slot teams, I'd probably call her an A tier unit. Saridra is probably the character I'm having the hardest time ranking. Earlier, I'd say when I considered Finon the top, like a top DPS, I'd probably say S. But honestly, my Finon's been struggling even with Saridra. I'm going to go and put her in A tier. I think Finon at E0S0 actually isn't quite as strong in at least Memory of Chaos, especially in AoE. In AoE, his damage falls off an absolute cliff. If they summon like if it's a single target boss which has like 2 summons, then oh my god, his damage falls off a cliff. If it's like 2 bosses, he's fine. But if, for example, the dot one which spawns in the jellyfishes, then oh my god, his damage falls off a roof as well. So yeah, it's been honestly slightly rough for Finon, and because that is Surge's best in slot team, I'd say she suffers slightly from it. She's still very good with Anexa, although Anexa doesn't have to use Surge, although I do think Surge probably is. I'd consider Surge a best in slot for him, but I don't think she's essential for him. For Mighty, she has come out as actually a pretty solid option after the release of Cyrene, but I feel like Cyrene is a unit who benefits Amphoria's characters just as much, but she benefits more of them, so I'd probably go ahead and put Saridra in the A tier, and then I'll go ahead and put Cyrene in the S tier. First of all, she works insanely well in in probably the strongest team in the game still, which of course is the Remembrance team, with Castress and Evernight. She's also very strong for just Castress, very strong for just Evernight, strong for Mighty, decent for Anexa, although not a must pull, decent for Finon, although not a must pull, very good for Aglaya, which Saridra isn't. So yeah, I'd say that Cyrene probably has more options than Saridra when at least a similar performance. Not quite as good in, say, Finon teams, but then, I'd say Saridra, Cyrene are just decently strong together, but at the same time, if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Cyrene over Saridra. Like I said, more team options, I'll always value that in free-to-play lists. Dunhung PT, second best sustain in the game, also very accessible. Argument that he should be over Hyacinth, although I'd say that's only because he was given out for free. When evaluating him individually, whether you should invest in him, not including that you have to... I don't know, I'd probably still put him in the S tier, although like I said, maybe for a newer player, it's a bit more like this. But if you have any Remembrance units, then I'd say it looks a bit more like this. So I'd say these two are kind of interchangeable, although this is just how things would stand for me. And then finally, that brings us to our newest unit, Yao Guang. The problem is she doesn't really work that well with anybody other than Sparksy for the time being. I think in the future she will be an SS tier character, but until that happens, I'd go ahead and put her in the S tier. Kind of similar to like an Nefa situation in Genshin, or like a Doran situation probably in the future. I definitely do think that she will get go up when either supports with synergize very well with her release, or just DPSs that synergize really well with her release outside of Sparksy. Because, you know, there is a theory, will Sparksy even end up being a DPS? Will she just end up being a sub DPS similar to Evernight, and then one of Evanesia or Silver, whether they will be both, or one of them will synergize very well with Yaguang? Either way, I feel like by version 4.2 Yaguang will be up here, but for the time being I'm gonna go and put her in the S tier, because, you know, for example, although the Archer team is solid, I don't think it's insane. It kind of relies on buffs from, say, Pure Fiction / Memory of Chaos to be very, very strong. But anyway, that's going to go ahead and be my tier list. Let me know, what would you swap around? Do you think I was overly harsh on anyone? Do you think I was too nice to anyone? What are some of your personal biggest changes since the last one? Or what do you feel most strongly about? Or just who are your top and bottom units? Let me know down below. With that being said, keep it civil, and I will see you guys next time. See ya.